Yes. Okay, I got the recording on. I am by myself today. I do not have meeting support, so just bear with me, please. Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Chelsea. I'm the program manager for Gateway to the Rockies Opioid Council, Region 10, also referred to as GROC. We do have a packed meeting today, and I think we are in a great groove because this is the exact same agenda that our advisory committee saw. So our advisory committee saw it, our executive committee saw it, and now we are at full council. We're going to start with attendance and quorum. Commissioner Dahlkemper.
Here.
Commissioner Marlin. Commissioner Hollingsworth.
I'm here.
Dan Ayton or Luke Parr.
Dan Ayton, I'm here.
Thank you. Heidi McCollum or Stephen Potts.
Stephen Potts is here.
Thank you. Sheriff Armstrong or Greg Demo.
Under Sheriff Demo here.
Thank you. Laura Weinberg or Chris Wolf.
Laura Weinberg, I'm here.
Janine Mariani.
I'm here.
Thank you. Tori Jantz or Troy Cooper.
Tori Jantz is here.
Thank you. Dr. Story or Michael Miller.
Michael's here for Dr. Story.
Thank you. Dr. Ryan or Emily Cooper.
Here. I'm here.
Thank you. I was like, I thought I saw your name. Marie Larson or Elisa Witt.
It's here.
Thank you. Mary Berg or Barb Weinstein.
It's Barb. I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah Casano or Dr. Gillingham.
Hi, Dr. Shore. Sarah Casano. I'm here.
Thank you. Janie Barker or David Jocelyn.
This is Janie Barker. I'm here.
Thank you. And then Kristen said she was going to be a little late. Do we have Kristen or Judge Cindy Jones? Not yet. We are at quorum. If you are a non-voting member, there is a QR code on the screen. I also dropped a link in the chat. Please use that to record your attendance. That information will be used to report conflicts of interest for today when we get to that section of the meeting. We have governance approval of December 8th meeting minutes.
This is Leslie. Barring any questions or comments, I would love to make a motion to approve the December 8th meeting minutes.
I'll second that. This is Sandy.
We'll vote by opposition in the chat. I'm not seeing any, so those are approved. Thank you. While I'm getting the Monday board to do conflicts of interest, we will go ahead and skip to a Jefferson County appointment update from Commissioner Dahlkemper.
Great. Thanks so much, Dr. Chelsea. We are very excited to welcome Golden Mayor Laura Weinberg, who is replacing, although he is irreplaceable as far as we're concerned, former Wheat Ridge Mayor Bud Starker, who served on the GROC for a number of years. Grateful for his service, and we're so happy to welcome you, Mayor Weinberg, to GROC. Mayor Weinberg's alternate will be Morrison Mayor Chris Wolf. Very happy to have Mayor Wolf on board. And Mayor Wolf will replace Lakewood City Councilwoman Sofia Mayotte Guerrero, who stepped down from the Lakewood City Council and has been a tremendous community leader and also a wonderful participant in GROC. So we wanted to just share that quick appointment update from Jefferson County with you all. Thanks.
Thank you. We are going to go into conflicts of interest. We do have Linda Behringer from Just Living Recovery. She's an advisory board member, no conflict of interest today. Amber Dower is the senior grants analyst or the Jefferson County fiscal contact. Rhiannon Strait from Omni Institute, our program evaluation team. I don't think they have a specific conflict of interest for today. All of our Jefferson County voting members do have a conflict of interest because Jefferson County Sheriff's Office and Jefferson County Public Health receive funding. All of our Gilpin County voting members have a conflict of interest because Gilpin County Parks and Rec and Gilpin County Sheriff's Department receive funding from GROC. And then all of our Clear Creek County voting members also have a conflict of interest because the chat team and Mountain Youth Network do receive funding from GROC. Did I get them all? I think I got them all. No one's saying anything, so I think I got them all. Today is super exciting. Per our bylaws, section 4.1 and 4.2, we need to select a chair and co-chair for the year 2026. If the chair and co-chair are not county commissioners, we also need to do an executive committee resolution amendment to include the newly selected presiding officers. So I have only received expressed interest from Commissioner Marlin, the current co-chair, to transition into the chair position, and Commissioner Hollingsworth to transition into the co-chair position. Is there any other interest before I ask for a motion or any discussion?
Chelsea, given no discussion or questions, I'm happy to go ahead and make a motion, and very, very happy, given these are two tremendous leaders who've been working with us over the years on the Gateway to the Rockies Opioid Council, a motion to select Commissioner Marlin as chair and Commissioner Hollingsworth as vice chair.
This is Kristen. I'll second that motion.
I guess I should ask Commissioner Hollingsworth and Commissioner Marlin if those interests still stand before we go into a formal motion.
I'd be happy to. This is Sandy.
Likewise. Thanks, y'all. It's been a lot of fun. And Leslie, you've been so good. Commissioner Dahlkemper, you've been so good. And I know you'll still be engaged.
You bet. I thank you so much.
All right, cool. So that has been first by Commissioner Dahlkemper, second by Kristen Heath. We will vote by opposition in the chat. I am not seeing any, so this has passed. I will be reaching out later today to Commissioner Dahlkemper as past chair, Commissioner Marlin as the new chair, and Commissioner Hollingsworth as the new vice chair to set up a transition meeting with Amber Dower, our fiscal contact, and Kate Newman as the deputy county manager who oversees my employment through Jefferson County, and then as well as a member of the Omni team that does program evaluation. So we can do just some transition of how we want to communicate and see 2026 going. We do have our finance report. Remember, our new financial transparency dashboard is live on our website. I haven't decided if we're going to update that quarterly or semi-annually, so every 6 months, while we're working on our expense report. This slide is a broad overview of our total funding to date, minus our expenditures for 2024, what we have obligated in contracts, and then what we have allocated to an Exhibit E approved use, but we have not yet assigned it to an awardee. Amber is working on expense reporting, which is due next month. And so once we get that updated, this slide will update. We have expense to date chat. Denver Recovery Group started their contract at the beginning of the year, so they have not yet invoiced. Lakewood co-responders, we are still in red lines with their contract, but we anticipate a February 1st start date. Jeffco Public Health started January 1st, so they have not yet expensed. Jeffco Sheriff Biometrics had a budget amendment that we will talk about today, but that contract is getting wrapped up. We're anticipating a February 1st start date. Recovery Works also started January 1st, so they have not yet expensed. Monarch Recovery was a lump sum up front. Advocates for Recovery has expensed some more money to date. We still need to update Resilience 1220 because of that budget amendment. We're working on what those numbers are. Mountain Youth Network started November 1st, but they have not yet expensed. Gilpin County Parks and Rec has not yet expensed. EUNA is a we have a contract. We did pay our end of 25 through October of 26 year. My salary and fringe, we got that line item figured out. Program evaluation for Omni, again, we had some issues with invoicing as we transitioned to the EUNA system. So we're getting that exact number paid to date. Our contingency fund, we have not yet expensed. The opioid settlement conference, this includes the $7,500 to the state opioid conference, that's sponsorship in October. This also includes the 6 approved early bird registrations for the National Opioid Conference in June. So that has been added here. And then our admin, that is whatever Jefferson County needs to be a fiscal agent. I just went over the contracting update, and then I just reviewed the draft for the JCMH Soteria Landing project. So we are anticipating a 2/1 start date still. We will get that added into next month's expense report. I'll take a break to see if there's any questions before I move into the next update. I'm not seeing any. So at the December 8th meeting, the council approved a total of 6 early bird registrations. Myself plus 5 grantees or advisory members interested in attending the National Opioid Conference in June of this year, which is located in Denver. Since that December 8th meeting, I was invited to be a speaker, so my registration is free. I will be speaking about using opioid settlement dollars for capital investments, which is very interesting stuff, by the way. Then we only had 4 individuals from our grantee and advisory group express interest in going. Linda Behringer from Just Living Recovery, Lori Spurgeon, the assistant director for Denver Recovery Group, a member from Recovery Works, and then Nina Shepard from Monarch Recovery. At the January 12th executive committee meeting, I wanted to confirm these names. That also left a total of 2 registrations that were not filled. The executive committee did express interest in sending at least 1 member of the executive committee, potentially a chair. My suggestion was to register those folks by the January 16th deadline for early bird registration. I can request a refund within 30 days, and I can transfer these tickets up until I think it's like the end of April, beginning of May. If this group does not approve the registration of these 2 individuals, Commissioner Marlin, now the chair, and Marie Larson, the public health representative from Gilpin, I do need a motion and vote to confirm the 2 executive committee members that I registered.
We always have such a quiet bunch, right?
Yeah, it can't,
Uh,
it
I
also
will,
cannot be George or Marie who make the motion.
yeah, I will move that we accept adding Commissioner Marlin and Marie Larson from Public Health to attend the opioid settlement conference.
I'll second that.
Who was the second?
That's Laura Weinberg.
Thank you. We will, and then I have Commissioner Marlin and Marie as abstaining. We will vote by opposition in the chat. I'm not seeing any, so this has passed. Commissioner Marlin and Marie, I will send you your QR codes for registration via email later today. So general updates on the letter of support request. It was a joint ROAC application to the State Infrastructure Award. It was regions 1, 5, 14. The day of the application, they also added region 19. So I did not get to update this letter of support with such short notice, but it did end up being 4 regions. The council retains the delegation authority to write letters of support. Letters of acknowledgement are within my delegation to draft as the program manager. So at the December 8th meeting, I did have a draft letter of support. They were still refining what the application was going to be specifically, and the council did grant me delegation only for this letter of support. A copy of that is included in your meeting materials packet. At the time, it was a total of $440,000 as $115,000 per participating ROAC for rural ROAC evaluation technical assistance and rural ROAC piloted impact evaluation. Like I said, that number increased because they did add a regional council. In terms of letters of acknowledgement, these use extremely neutral language. They are very objective, matter of fact. They do not hold any type of weight on the grant maker's decision to fund or not fund. The first one went to Region 4 with Omni Institute as an implementing organization. There is a disclaimer of transparency, making notice of any potential conflict of interest that GROC does contract with Omni Institute for program evaluation 25 to 27 in the amount of $120,000. Their application was $500,000 for 2 years, and that was a statewide evaluation project. The next letter of acknowledgement was strengthening regional impact through data and learning systems, University of Colorado, Denver, Anschutz. So very similar to the Region 4 Omni one. And I did notify the state that I wrote 2 letters of acknowledgement for a similar project. They said that was fine. But theirs is $282,182 for 2 years. Next letter of acknowledgement was for the Colorado Recovery Friendly Workplace Initiative through Centers for Health, Work, and Environment, Colorado School of Public Health, in the amount of $556,594 for 2 years. Next one is a Future Syringe Access Program Summit for the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment Office, STI, HIV, and viral hepatitis in the amount of $750,000 for 2 years. The last letter of acknowledgement is Family Resource Center Association in Illuminate, Colorado for the Colorado Department of Early Childhood in the amount of $750,000 over 2 years. As a reminder, the purpose of letters of acknowledgement are to track who is applying for what funding and in what areas. Some of these projects do overlap with Region 10. So I am working with our participating local governments to create a participating local government strategic plan to better inform the regional strategic plan. And then that would open up like cross-regional collaboration or special interest project funding for the participating local governments in Region 10 that are doing projects that maybe need a little bit more money or a matching grant from the regional council. Also making sure that the regional council is not duplicating funding efforts with a different project that might compete with a participating local government. I'm also trying to map all of the available resources in Region 10 to better inform our strategic plan. Before I go into the next agenda item, are there any questions, comments, concerns about this?
This is Leslie. No, just a huge thank you for all of the work on these letters. and greatly appreciate it. And I think it also just demonstrates our continued partnership and collaboration as well. So thanks so much for all the effort that went into those.
Thank you. And you're welcome. The next agenda item. This is really just a notice to the full council as our current policy delegates approval to the executive committee. Jefferson County Sheriff's Department did propose a budget amendment during contracting. Their application requested 4 long-range wireless gateways for $3,800. The revised budget is requesting 22 long-range wireless gateways for $20,900. Per the June 23rd, 2025 meeting minutes, this award was conditionally approved for a total cap of $537,582 structured over 2 years. If the council funded 50 units in year 1 and then continued that funding only those 50 units in year 2, the anticipated total was $284,881. If it funded 50 units in year 1 and 50 units in year 2, I do not have that total for you. It would add up closer to this number. The revised budget made the year 1 total different and the year 2 total different. So the cap of the award was actually less, $451,557, but the range, the lower end of the award was actually higher, $304,772. So because this line item is more than 10%, it required executive committee approval. I think this is so big of a difference because this award was awarded 7 months ago. They've had more time to prospect vendors and what they would require. Certain aspects are not scalable, like you have to get a minimum no matter what. The contract language does say up to 22. And so if they only need 10, then they're only going to get 10. This number would be less. So this was approved by the executive committee as well as recommended for approval by the advisory committee. Are there any questions from the full council on this? I'm not seeing any, so I will go ahead and go into the next agenda item. We did approve this in the executive committee, but only the full council has delegation to finalize the approval. So I will go over these right now. In the grantee playbook, we do have some policy revisions because this is a first draft and things come up as people get into our uniportal. The first let me back up. Would the council like me to do one at a time or explain the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the 6 changes, and then we can just do a batch motion to approve or reject at the end?
This is Leslie. I'm comfortable doing the second, the latter, kind of the big picture, and then a batch motion with the caveat that if there's one that becomes an issue for any reason or requires changes, we could just pull that out. Pull that item out and vote on that separately.
I did also just drop a link to the grantee playbook in the chat. So the first amendment comes from quarterly reporting template addition. We initially left this as TBD because our uniportal was not yet built out, and we wanted to see what the performance reporting would look like if it could be done directly in the system, if grantees would use the Qualtrics links hosted by Omni, and then Omni would import it. And we did ultimately decide that grantees will submit their quarterly reports through a Qualtrics service survey link hosted by Omni. The Omni team will validate responses and import them into the grantee's respective eUnit portal so they can engage with the results and track milestone progress. Any questions on that one? Okay, the next one was in addition to the decision tree, clarifying non-material and material changes. So right now, if it's under 10% line item and it's a non-material change, I can approve it and then notify the council. If it's over 10% of a budget item, or it's a material change, it has to be approved by the executive committee. And so I added this section here, just defining more explicitly what would be a material change. And then some examples like changing the project goals, target population, service area, eliminating a major deliverable, replacing it with something different, adding a new project component not included in the approved proposal, shifting funds into or out of a major cost category that alters how the project operates. So moving from staffing to equipment, that would change how the program is implemented. Requesting a significant change in the timeline that affects the project completion within the award period, changing the lead implementing partner or subcontractor in a way that affects delivery. That would be a contractual change for sure. Any change that requires an amendment to the grantee agreement terms. Non-material changes would be like staff turnover or replacement in a comparable role where duties remain the same, program continuity is maintained. Minor adjustments to the project schedule that do not affect completion within the award period. Minor changes in vendors or procurement methods where services or products are equivalent. Budget line item moves that remain consistent with the approved scope and intent. So a small reallocation between supplies and operating costs. Updates to internal processes for implementation that do not affect any type of grant requirement. So that was added here. Next amendment is in the allowable cost reference. So the prohibited expense would be work outside the contract period. That is elaborated on page 17. Fringe benefits are allowable only for the period during which an individual is actively employed and working on the funded project. Fringe costs may be charged through the employee's final day of employment. Any fringe benefits incurred after the date of separation, including amounts associated with paid out leave beyond the final day worked, are not allowable as they do not align with the period of service provided to the project. Commissioner Marlin brought up in the executive committee meeting whether we were using consistent language for half FTE versus 1 FTE. I do not yet have an answer because I do not yet have an example of what that could or should look like in this policy, but it is on Amber's radar when we do our auditing. That will also, I think, come up in our next RFA when folks build out their budget in eUnit. Some people have fringe as a separate line item entirely, and some grantees have a salary and corresponding fringe as one line item. So that's something that we have to standardize in general, and the eUnit portal will help us do that. So that is something that we are watching for in our invoice audit. The next change is on page 26, the budget reallocation form, specifically in a comment bubble right here. So this specific form is not needed at this time because the eUnit system does have specific amendment options for a budget increase, budget reallocation, timeline extensions, and performance goals. I do want to keep the form in the playbook until its usefulness is determined to be absolutely obsolete. While the eUnit platform is still working towards full implementation, the GROC may request use of this form. I basically need a grantee to request various types of budget amendments to make sure that the AUNA budget form has all of the information that we need. So I do want to keep this in here. I'm not yet using it, but I could request it later. Performance goals amendment will be used for a scope of work amendment is what it is called in AUNA. And same thing, we kind of have to see what that looks like. Performance goal amendment is slightly different than the evaluation plan that EUNA is, or I'm sorry, that Omni is overseeing. So again, we're kind of just seeing how these things play out. There is a staff change amendment form on the next page. That would be the final amendment. And then additional forms may be implemented as contract amendment requests arise. So this form is uploaded into AUNA. If there is a staff change, then this is the form that folks should be using through the AUNA portal. I think it has all the information I would need on it. Again, I kind of need someone to use it and see what different things come up. But this would be used like if they are replacing an existing staff, so someone left and they had to hire a new one. If they need to add a staff, so if they want to change a 1 FTE to 2 half FTE, that is something I can approve. If they remove a staff, then they also need to submit a deliverable or budget change, and then that would also be a budget amendment. That could have to go to the executive committee as a material change, especially if there's a line item that's greater than 10% that is moving, because now they don't need that staff member. If they're changing a staff role or responsibilities, based on what that looks like, that might have to go to executive committee for contract amendment if the minimum qualifications are different than what's in the contract. But this would help give us all that information. If they have staff turnover, I am asking folks to fill this out, because this is how we create a paper trail for needing a 0 additional cost contract extension. So similar, that was why chat needed the extension last year, is they had an open position for a few months. So that created enough money to do that extension. This notifying us in a timely manner will help us track that and hopefully problem solve where we wouldn't have to do that. Or again, just give us justification to do that. Those are all of my amendments. Floor is open.
Chelsea, I think everyone's just happy you're doing all of this for clarifications.
Thank you so much. It's definitely a new world, uncharted territory. Trying to be as clear as possible in our policy. If there are
Does
no,
anyone have any questions or comments on this, or should we go straight to a motion to approve?
I think we can go into a
Okay, hearing
motion.
none. Yep, I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to approve these modifications as presented.
This is Leslie. I'll go ahead and second.
We will vote by opposition in the chat. I'm not seeing any, so these have passed. I will go ahead and give these to our grantees. Wow, we are on a roll today. This is the bulk of our meeting, and this is our RFA cohort 3 brainstorm. This issue came up, this conversation came up in the executive committee, and they did make a request. So I'll talk about that first. We had a proposal for emergency funding in late December. The last conversation this council had was that we were not yet using that funding mechanism because we did not have tight enough bounds on what constituted an emergency. And if we wanted to put spending caps on that. But this proposal came in, it was very timely. It seemed well aligned with the initial conversations of emergency funding. So I did bring it to the executive committee for conversation. In the same vein, we did just use our special interest projects funding mechanism for Soteria, the JCMH Soteria Landing project. And since then, I probably receive one email every day saying that they qualify for special interest projects, but I don't think they necessarily do. I don't want to be a gatekeeper of that, but I am also supposed to be a gatekeeper to not overload the council with things that are not aligned with the funding mechanism. So the executive committee requested that I draft application materials, a standard application for emergency funding and special interest projects, along with their corresponding rubric for our February 9th meeting. I have done that. That plays into when we do our next RFA 3, because we also need to think about the workload for me to manage 2 open funding mechanisms, our renewal applications. We have 2 of them that are due in June or July of this year. Then we have our additional RFA 3, while I am simultaneously planning our 2026 summit and our building the infrastructure for our 14 current contracts. That's a lot. So for RFA 3, I'm taking option 1 off the table because everything I just told you is also feeling overwhelming. So if we do option 2, that would be no funding in 2026. At the March 23rd full council meeting, this group would review and approve the renewal application and rubrics. In April, the unit team would build out the application. At the April meeting, we would onboard this whole team onto the Unit platform, get you your user information, teach you how to use the platform so that you can score applications. And then from June to July, our 2 renewal applications, Advocates for Recovery and Denver Recovery Group, they would test the application system. From August 1st to the 17th, the council would individually score the 2 renewal applications. At the August 24th council meeting, we would have group discussion of those renewal applications. And then we would contract September through November, knowing that a lot does not get done in December. And they would have a January 1st, 2027 award date, which would align the funding period with the strategic plan, the state calendar. In September, the council would debrief the unit review process, the application, the rubric. Do we like it? Do we not like it? In October, the COAG opens their infrastructure application. We would accept letters of intent to be an implementing organization. In November, the projected biannual conference. I projected this to be December. But we would decide on the state infrastructure letters of intent if we wanted to be an applicant for any of those. Those would be due in January. In December, we would have our conference. In December, you would need to review the RFA prompts and rubrics for the full RFA cohort 3. I do believe that treatment, recovery, prevention, they need slightly different questions or slightly different rubrics. So you have to review, am I describing the project correctly? Am I asking all the questions that you want answered? Do you know how to use the rubric? Do you like the rubric? Do you want it to be holistic or analytical? That would happen at the December meeting. And then in January 2027, we would open up for a letter of intent. That would just be an abstract, a funding area, a total budget request. January, we reorient to the eUNIS system. February 1st to the 15th, you have an individual review of the letter of intent. The rubric is advanced or not advanced. That's it. We can only pick a maximum of 20 applications to advance to the full application because this group previously requested not reviewing more than 3 to 4 applications because they are so extensive. So we would pick our top 16 to 20, invite them to apply March and April. Application sorting, I gave myself a week this time. You would have 2 weeks to do your individual scoring in a UNA. May 24th council meeting, again, 2027, we would have a group consensus. And then we would have group discussions for 1 through 4, 5 through 8. And then end of July, we have our budget discussion, final decisions. We contract really August through November. And then that puts us again into January 2028 award, aligning to the state calendar. I will pause and open the floor for questions, comments, or concerns.
Dr. Chelsea, I guess I have a question of something you said. So you're getting a lot of emails about the special projects route, but you were saying that you don't feel like they qualify. What types of projects? Like what are the, could you just speak more about that?
Yeah, so I do provide them with an application template of questions. Like you can fill this out if you want to take the time to do it, and it'll go to the advisory committee who will make a recommendation to the executive committee who will either shut it down, ask for more information, or advance it. I have not yet had anyone actually submit an application, but they're not special projects. They're general RFA projects. So Soteria Landing was a capital project that went through the RFA process, and all of the reviewers liked the project, but they didn't feel like we were asking the correct questions in the application. And so it wasn't scored high enough to advance. And then the capital project had a timeline that it needed an investment to meet new market tax credits for better loan terms in 2026. So that's something very big with a time marker that initially went through the RFA that the council really liked, but they didn't feel like, again, we were asking the right question. The projects that I'm getting emailed about are like mobile MAT. That's a great project. That's aligned with the strategic plan, but why can't it go through the RFA? They're not really justifying that. Or it's a harm reduction program in Arapahoe County that wants to expand into Jefferson County. That's a great project, but why can't it go through the RFA? Or that's something that folks are not able to really justify. I did have a sober living capital project. I have a meeting with them this week. The capital aspect definitely fits special interest projects, but we don't have NAR or CAR that was disbanded. That is the regulating body of sober living homes. The Behavioral Health Administration is supposed to be releasing new guidance on NAR 2.0 sometime in Q1, I think, maybe Q2, not entirely sure. So that would be a risk that we take investing in a sober living home that's not yet certified. So I don't think that project should go through special interest projects because we don't have certification project for them.
Thank you. That's helpful. It's just helpful to know like the need. It seems like there's lots of need, perhaps just not for these like time bound projects that would fit into the special interest.
Yeah. Commissioner Dahlkemper.
Thank you. You know, I just want to make sure I'm understanding correctly how we're thinking this through, and thank you so much for that great overview. So if I'm hearing correctly, next year we are focusing more on putting the systems in place that you had talked about that help address the funding, to help address the grantees and how those dollars are being allocated, also to help our evaluation efforts. And apologies for the background weighing in there. But it sounds like we would not do funding this year. We're building the process in place to begin allocating another new round of funding in 2027, but we would still have the opportunity, correct me if I'm wrong, if a grantee came to us and said, we're looking at emergency funding, they can rationalize it, make a strong case for it, we would then bring that to executive committee and then to council if we felt that it merited that and had some weight to it. That's sort of one piece. And then do we also have room for any other sort of special projects, or are we saying no, would only be emergency funding related for this year?
I think that would depend on the executive committee's conversation February 9th when they review
Okay.
when they review the draft applications. In my mind, the executive committee would review the emergency funding and special interest project applications February 9th. I would make any adjustments. The full council would approve those at the February 23rd meeting. EUNA would build them out at the beginning of March. I would submit a mock special interest project for the executive committee to go through the rubric process of that at the March executive committee meeting. And then that mechanism is definitely open for funding. I still want to clarify how I can best gatekeep or what those eligibility requirements are for special interest projects, so I can limit the number of emails I get and the number of people who fill out an application that they just really are not a special interest project. So I do want to tighten up that eligibility criteria before we really launch it. And then we'll kind of do the same thing with the emergency funding, really define what constitutes an emergency before we open up that funding.
And then finally, do we have any existing grantees in 2026 who may be up for, I think you may have touched on this, my apologies, who may be up for renewal funding?
Yeah, that would
And then
be
we would continue with that renewal funding barring any issues, as long as it looks good, it's accountable, transparent, and responsive. We would, of course, approve either way, but that door is still open as well.
correct. So that would
Okay,
be
perfect.
Advocates for Recovery Colorado and Denver
That's right.
Recovery Group. And I am going to request that they have at least a 15-month contract. So because they're up like September and October. So if we make it roughly 15 months, I would give you the exact dates of what their 1-year renewal would be. Then we can shift them to a January 1st contract so that they're on a calendar year with the state and the strategic plan.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Chelsea, I just wanted to add, part of the discussion too was that all entities from state to county to city to nonprofits have been facing budget cuts. And so just a budget cut isn't necessarily an emergency, because then everybody would be applying. So that's not in and of itself a criteria. And then we also discussed that there's the great unknown with the state budget. And so we may not know anything until the fiscal year. And so we want to reserve the right to be flexible in case an entity that's providing services is really hard hit. Maybe there would be a case or not, that is an emergency to fund them. But I know we had talked about simply budget cuts are not an emergency.
Thank you so much for recapping that and bringing that to this meeting. I did add an application prompt in the emergency funding of describe how this is not subplantation based on the state guidelines of subplantation. So hopefully that item too helps us narrow down eligibility criteria. I did also want to refine the cross-regional collaboration funding mechanism. When we initially approved the SOP, I couldn't find that draft in a timely manner, so we just skipped over it. I do have that highlighted now. It is ready for council review and approval, and I won't drop that on you today. But also, again, thinking about our participating local governments, that factors into the cross-regional collaboration. If they have a project that they're funding or they want to fund that needs a matching award, I think we should be prioritizing our participating local government as the regional council. And so allowing them that separate mechanism. Or like I said, if Adams County has an idea that they want to match with Region 10 cross-regional collaboration, that would fall in that. I think that does have a lot tighter, narrow eligibility criteria, but that is also a funding mechanism that I'd rather focus on this year instead of a whole new RFA.
I'll weigh in here. I think what I hear you saying, Dr. Shore Miller, is that option 2 is the thing that you can tell this body that you and we can pull off this year. I worry about emerging needs that happen this year, whether it's due to budget cuts or policy changes at the state or federal level. Both of those entities appear to be gearing up to recede from this space in a way that could cause the progress that we've made in this space to slow down or even reverse itself. And what I mean by that is we could actually see opioid-related deaths start to march back up. I would not want us to render ourselves unable to pivot in such a scenario. And I also don't like the idea of just imagining we can do more than you're telling us we can. That said, like, I have a lot of confidence for our ability to move the needle this year if we're saying that we can't either figure out an RFA that's responsive to a big policy change that is likely to happen, or a way to process emergency requests. I mean, whether it's generating from a budget cut from the state or federal government or not, like, if some of the agencies providing or organizations providing these services start to actually tell us that they can't provide the services anymore without our support, I'd like us to have a plan to be able to step into that space in 2026. And I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what that looks like on your side or what kinds of investments we need to make in staff capacity. But I'm concerned coming out of this meeting saying under no circumstances will new funding be made available in 2026, given all of the context I just provided.
I guess I should rename option 2 to no major funding in 2026. If we do option 2, that, like, we don't have a full-blown RFA, that allows us to refine the emergency special interest cross-regional collaboration funding mechanisms as more niche mechanisms, and then our renewal applications. If you want to do a mini RFA, again, you're looking at 20 something applications. What I need from the council is more delegation authority to draft the prompt, the rubric, and the application so I can get things moving. A huge reason why this is not possible is because I have to wait a whole month to get something approved by this group. And so then I get iterations and I have to wait another 30 days to get something approved. Things don't move fast enough from this group to really do this while I'm also managing this. If we do like a 20 application RFA, that is going to be a lot more work on the council. You have to review those applications. We're not going to open emergency funding, special interest, cross-regional collaboration. And emergency funding, we only have $300,000 in that pot right now, but I can move all 9 million over to that pot if that's what you want. And I think, go ahead.
This is Laura, sorry, being new here. Is there a defined process for the emergency applications, or is it the same process as regular?
It is slightly different. Let me see if I can, we do have a vague process for it. And that's why I don't think we should open it yet, because it needs to be more explicit.
Thanks. Yeah, I just, it is a time-consuming process, which doesn't lend itself to emergency release of funds, if that's the intent, to get it out in a shortened period of time.
Yeah, I mean, Carrie's in the room, so she can correct me. I need 2 to 3 months to contract, realistically. So that, I mean, that's as fast as we could go. I'm scared if we go any faster and we take things out of our contracting process, that we're throwing money into a fire. We're not putting a fire out. It's not just dollars that create impact and change. It's the infrastructure around those dollars. So here's our emergency funding. We need an application and we need a rubric, and we just need more. We need to define what is an emergency. And so that was where the executive committee asked me to draft a general application and rubric for this. They are going to review it at the February 9th meeting. If they approve it, this council will review it at the February 23rd meeting. Then we can open this mechanism.
Sorry, I'm being rude with the raised hand feature. I had to call in. So can I'm going to turn Chelsea's response to me into a question for the group. If there's a trade-off between having the opportunity to meet emergent needs this year and GROC wanting to see these policies and have a chance to approve them as a whole body, where do you land? Like, are people favorable to the idea that further evolution of these policy documents can be done at the executive committee level to free up time for us to give ourselves an opportunity to get out funding this year?
This is Janine. I would be in favor of anything that, yeah, makes it easier, less burdensome, and getting things approved and getting things moving. I do feel like, yeah, just working in a nonprofit, it is really, really bad right now. And, to have the ability to give funds, I don't know, to me, it's like an ethical question, like to be responsive to this need and the things we know that we will be coming this year, the current situation, the need. I think it is like our duty to do that. So however we can be responsive in whatever ways that make sense to make it as minimally burdensome is what I'm in favor of.
Commissioner Dahlkemper.
Thank you. I was waiting to see too if we would hear from other members of GROC on this issue in response to George's question, and hopeful others will weigh in. I feel as if one of the things that has been a core value for us over the last 4 years or so is, or more maybe, has been to really focus on transparency and accountability. And we've put a number of very important systems in place to ensure that that is reflected in the work that we do. This issue around flexibility for Dr. Shore-Miller, I think, is absolutely critical. You also have the executive committee as a sounding board and the whole council. And I also think that we have flexibility as a body too. If we get to a point, so that was a slightly longish way of saying, yes, I do support making the process a little bit, making the process more timely and responsive with Dr. Shore-Miller's assistance in that. And I also think that if there is a point where we're out of sync with meetings or we need to bring the body together for something that is critical, given the swiftly changing national and state landscape, I think that this is a group that would be willing to look at that. You know, we don't want to do that often or abuse it, but we also have that option as well. So I would be in favor of tightening up the process. Let's get these dollars where they need to be in a way that is remains accountable and transparent, but also responsive and timely.
And I'll just add that I think we have discussed being flexible and responsive. So I think that's a good thing. I know that in the beginning, the thinking of GROC was that we wanted to fund entities that were going to build their resilience, their sustainability, and maybe bring in innovation. But now times have changed a bit that with, you know, the changes that are coming down to us at the state level and the county level. So I think responding to things that will help entities that are now serving continue, but not necessarily backfilling operating costs in and of themselves. So like if people say, you know, we've run out of X supplies and it's really critical, our need has gone up, we need this. Absolutely, I'd love to hear from those entities in our region. I know that sometimes we've funded some that didn't guarantee they were going to serve people in our region. And I think I'd like us to be more cognizant of that too, because there are other regions out there, and that will help preserve, you know, getting people that live in our 3-county region the best access to services. So I think, and I also wouldn't support like putting the whole $9 million into the emergency funds, because it could quickly go and then we wouldn't have the building block money for these new innovative services that are going to fill in gaps that are being identified. That's all.
So I guess now we could motion a delegation to the executive committee to approve the application materials and rubric for emergencies funding, special interest projects, renewal applications, cross-regional collaboration. That would shorten that approval process by 30 days and open up those funding mechanisms sooner. In terms of the review process, I'll use March as an example. So like, let's say we open emergency funding that second week of February, then it would go to, someone could apply February 16th. It would get reviewed 2 weeks later, March 9th, by the executive committee. Then it would still have to come to full council March 23rd for an approval. So you're looking at a 1-month turnaround time. Then Carrie, you could weigh in here because contracting is really your work. Anywhere between May, June, and July, we could release the funds. If someone applied February 10th.
I think those would be outside dates. Chelsea, it seems like recently we've had a lot of nuanced requests for edits to standard contracts where parties who've received the grant funding have pushed back substantially on contract terms that others have accepted. And so, although I've just been involved in this work since I think December, that has been my observation, is that if there's significant pushback, then it takes a bit of time. So yes, I think that a May, June timeframe is realistic in light of what I've seen to date. I don't know historically if that has been the case, and if there's, the other, thing that we do have is an ability to include others within the transactions team to assist with this work if the time that is taking is something that we can control. But the one that I'm thinking about in particular is not so much in our control with regard to how long it takes to hear back from the grantee on changes that they're requesting. But just to underscore, I'm certainly sensitive to the need to turn these around quickly and get the money placed and funded. So if there are systems improvements that I can make on my team's end, certainly open to that. We do have someone joining our office in March who very well could be instrumental in this work as well.
So Chelsea, you'll be working to define what emergency means. Is that correct? I know we had talked about that. Because my sense of emergency may be very different than yours or someone else's. Yeah.
I am not working to define it. I was just drafting the application for the executive committee to review at the February 9th meeting. And so the application does require that they answer how is not receiving funding a threat to GROC operations, property or interest will be harmed or damaged, the welfare of GROC's constituents will be endangered in the insufficient time to perform a standard RFP or RFA. They do have to describe subplantation, and they do have to describe financial sustainability. So it's not so much defining an emergency as being connected to a public health crisis, so much as it is defining how your request fits into the SOP in the application questions. And I guess the question becomes too is, so if emergency funding, what was the example? Do we want it to be vetted by the executive committee first? Oh, they can't apply until 2/16. That's why. Because I would not put that here. I would request that it's submitted a week in advance. So then
I would be satisfied while you're typing this out just to know that we're choosing a more efficient process to get these last few policy documents approved. I think that opens up a lot of different options, right? And I think I also, in addition to supporting this motion, still trying to provide plenty of time for people to speak against it, would like just the general notion that maybe by next meeting you can bring back other things that you think we can delegate or do to make the possibility of getting funding out more efficient.
I can do that at the February 9th executive committee meeting.
And so I think we've discussed this a lot, and I think the proper motion, and I'll ask someone if they'd like to make it, is to delegate authority to approve emergency SIP cross-regional collaboration and renewal apps to the executive committee for approval in February.
This is Leslie, so moved.
We'll vote by opposition in the chat. Not seeing any, so this is approved. Eric will work on that executive committee resolution for that delegation. I will bring those application materials to the February 9th meeting, along with some timelines and some additional options for delegation authority requests to help speed up the process. And that's it. That is all I have.
Thank you. Will you count me? I second that motion. You can call me the second on that motion so that it's proper.
All right, so our next meeting is going to be February 5th. That's our advisory committee meeting virtual from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. I'm going to go over some standard operating procedure amendments. The February 9th executive committee meeting, like I said, I will have all of these application materials for review with timelines and some additional delegation options to help speed up the process. February 23rd, we will go over all of that information as a group. Remember, that meeting is hybrid, so we will be in person in Jefferson County at the Fay Griffin Conference Room, as well as online. That is it. I will give you 15 minutes back.
Thanks. Good to see you all.
Thank you.